Hello and welcome to the Construction Industry Institute's webinar, The New Normal and How to Navigate the Virtual World. I'm Mike Pappas, CII's Associate Director of Deployment. And with us today, we have Brent Darnell from Brent Darnell International. How are you doing today, Brent?
Doing well, Mike, doing well.
Great. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. We're recording today's webinar, and we'll post the recording link afterwards on our blog site, which you can find at www.construction-institute.org/blog. We'll take questions throughout Brent's talk. Please use the chat function to submit questions. So let me introduce our guest. Brent's grandfather and father were both in the construction industry, and Brent earned a mechanical engineering degree from Georgia Tech in 1981 and began his own construction career. He was an MEP coordinator and senior project manager on complicated projects like the Brooke Army Medical Center and housing for the 1996 Summer Olympic Village. These first-hand experiences allow Brent to speak with a deep understanding of his audience and the problems they commonly face. Brent's passion is to transform the industry into one that is more collaborative, more relationship-driven, and more fun. He teaches courses and speaks about topics including emotional intelligence, communication, leadership, and building high-performance teams. Kind of reminds me of something my first boss told me. You'll find construction management will be easy if it weren't for the people. Some of the things Brent has written include Transforming Alpha Males into Service-Focused Leaders and the Tough Guy Survival Kit. He has made some of his materials available for free at his website, and you see the link there, brentdarnell.com. So Brent, the new normal. Most offices are empty and most people are working from home. How do we effectively work in a virtual world?
Well, there's a number of things we're going to talk about today. We're going to focus on how we do meetings. You know, a lot of people are using Zoom and GoToMeeting, and we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about just how this human connection is probably more important than ever. And I would add to that list of what I want to help the industry do, being more collaborative, more relationship driven, and more fun, also more innovative and more lean. And this is about using innovative techniques. So what I'd like to do first, though, just to check the chat, tell me what you want to get out of today. If you're on this call, chat in there. What would be something that you want to get out of today? Something you want to leave with today? Just chat it in the chat box, and let's see if we can see. First, you have to find the chat box. Let's see. We'll give you another minute or so. Mike, I'm not seeing any responses. They may just be slow to react, but I'm not seeing any yet.
I don't see any either. Let me work on that.
All right. So while Mike's working on that, we'll just continue to go. And if he can get that figured out, we would like to use the chat box some more during this, because part of what this virtual thing needs now is more interactivity. So let's take a look. First and foremost, I want you to know I'm a construction guy. That guy in the white shirt looking up at that load, that's my dad. So I grew up in the business, and that's my background. And that's what I love to do. I love construction. I love the people in it. So anything I can do to help the industry and help you guys out there. So we're in the middle of this pandemic, right? This VUCA world, volatile. You know, it's never the same day to day. Uncertain. Nobody knows when this is going to change and what it's going to look like. It's totally complex. We can see how we're interrelated and how complex everything we do when we connect with other human beings or connect in a business sense, how complex those relationships and those supply chains can get. And then it's ambiguous. You know, nobody knows. So how do you navigate through this? Well, the Marines have a mission statement that says improvise, adapt, and overcome, and that's what we're trying to do here. And that's what I want to talk about today is using more improvisational techniques, use some things that maybe you haven't even thought about, especially with your virtual world. This to be true. My whole business is based on human connection, and human connection, it's more important now than it ever was. So know that that's part of this process in terms of how we connect with each other. Even though it's virtual, it's still a human connection. So some tools we're going to use today. One is applied improvisation. Now there's a group called the Applied Improvisation Network. I will give you their website toward the end. And they're awesome. They also have some Facebook groups. And applied improv is just taking improvisational concepts and then applying them to business, to leadership, to learning, to education. They've even applied it to emergency preparedness, aging and dementia, teaching autistic kids. I mean, there's all kind of applications for this applied improv. We're going to apply some of these to these virtual meetings today. Also, gamification. Games are fun, right? We play games to have a good time and have fun. So it's gamifying your virtual meetings, gamifying learning to make it more interactive and to make it more engaging. And then we're going to talk a lot about experiential and activity-based learning. My mentor is Tyagi. He's kind of the father of this experiential activity-based learning. He's got a lot of research on it. He's at the University of, Iowa University. And he's done a lot of PhD studies on activity-based experiential learning versus our traditional pedagogical models where somebody's talking. And then we're going to talk a little bit about storytelling and how that comes into play. Okay. All right, Mike, guys, let me take just a second here. I see, all right, there's questions, but okay, we still want to try to get the chat box going if we can. All right, so we're working on that, guys. So we're going to talk about storytelling as well. All right, so improv. What is improv? Well, it's not about being funny, and it's not about being unprepared. It's a lot about having a set of rules and then using those rules to be more creative and all of those things listed there, to listen better, more empathy, being more authentic. All of those things are things that improv promotes. And then some basics. Listening is the #1 skill that any improviser needs. They have to listen and understand the other person and understand where they're coming from. There's a concept called yes and. We tend to be yes but in this industry. So if somebody comes to you with a new idea, you tend to go to yes but. Yeah, but you know, we tried that in 2001 and it didn't work. Or yeah, but that's too expensive. Or yeah, but you know, who's going to pay for that? Yeah, but they'll never go for that. And it's a yeah, but sort of mentality. And improv is about yes and. It's accepting an idea and adding to it and promoting it and making it go even further. So it's shifting that mindset from a yes but to a yes and. Yes and does not mean agreement or even that it's a good idea. It just means that you're going to explore the possibilities. Okay. And then another couple other concepts: making others look good, make your partner look good. That's a big tenet of improv. And then you got to make a commitment. You got to commit to stuff. And then taking risk, which this industry is not really good at taking risk. We're very risk averse, and that's good for a lot of things. It's not good for the virtual world, and it's not good for improv, and it's not good for innovation and creativity. So taking a risk involves vulnerability. So there's a great leadership guru I really love, Brene Brown, and she has a book called Dare to Lead. And in that, she talks about her work with special ops people. And they finally reached the conclusion that nothing heroic ever happens if you don't have vulnerability. So if a wounded guy's out on a battlefield and you're under fire and you have to go out and get that person and bring them back, that's a heroic act, but you're totally vulnerable. You could be killed. So if there was no fire, if there's no bullets flying, it wouldn't be a heroic act. You would just walk out there and pick the person up and bring them back. So these risk-taking leads to heroic acts or really good breakthroughs on stuff. So we're going to focus today just on virtual meetings because that's what everybody is doing a lot of, and I'm sure you guys are really zoomed out at this point. So we're going to talk about how to make the meetings better. First of all, let's go through some technical stuff. And these may seem simple to you, but and you can teach your people these things too. Set up some good lighting, get some lighting so your face is lit, so you're not in shadow. Get a good microphone or headset. Look at the virtual background or maybe background that you have. So you're setting it up kind of like shooting a movie. And it should be nice, and the sound should be good, and the visuals should be good if you're sharing videos, right? Then make sure you use just good meeting rules. I would recommend smaller groups for these virtual groups, no more than about 12 to 15. You get up to 30, 40 people, it gets really unwieldy, and you don't know who's supposed to talk. And so small groups are better. I would say generally no meeting over 2 hours. If you need something over 2 hours, break it up into several meetings. Make sure you have the agenda and some deliverables so that the virtual meeting is just to decide and not to brainstorm and discuss unless that's the purpose of the meeting. And then here's an idea. If you have set meetings and they're a specific length, say an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours, try cutting the time in half and use Parkinson's rule of time, which is you're going to use whatever time you have available. So, and if that doesn't work, you can always go back to your full time, but maybe it will work. And then you've cut half the time out of your meetings. You got to have a good, strong facilitator and make the emphasis on having fun and being interactive. The other thing I've found with these virtual meetings is you got to really address the introverts versus extroverts, because the extroverts are going to want to turn their videos on. They're going to want to talk a lot. And the introverts would prefer to keep their videos off and maybe use the chat box more. So address both and say, you know, both are okay unless you really need to see somebody if they're doing some movement or something. Make sure that you let people be as comfortable as they can be with the purpose and meaning of the meeting that you're having. So that's just a note that I've found with introverts versus extroverts in this virtual meeting world. So make sure they understand the technology, which, you know, make sure they know how to set up their audio and video and how to use screen share and chat and things like that. We're going to talk about breakout rooms. This is actually Zoom. I use Zoom because they've got it figured out with regard to videos. Some of the other platforms, the videos get a little choppy or you get some echoey stuff going on. So I really like Zoom. They've figured out that video part quite well. So you can see here, you can set up your microphone and all your audio, and then you can also look at video and make sure you got that all set up right. Just teach people how to walk through that, and you can just create some screenshots and let them know, here's how you set all this stuff up, right? This is a speaker view. This is a meeting I was in last week, and you can see there's some stuff in the chat there. And then that's the speaker speaking, and you'll have everybody else across the top. Now you can click on something called the gallery view, where you can see everybody. It looks like that. So that way, if you've got, I think this screen, depending on what your screen size is, can get up to like 24 people in it. And you can see everybody's face, which is kind of cool. So make sure everybody understands the technology behind this. And you can do sharing each other's screens. You can do all kinds of really cool little things. They also, most all of these platforms have some kind of hand raising, voting, those kind of things. You know, just make sure you check out the capabilities of whatever technology you're using and utilize as many as you can, because as much as you can have people use some different stuff where they're clicking around, they're going to stay engaged. Don't just make it where they're just listening. Okay, let's talk about how to start a meeting, some openers to begin with. Now, this was a cool thing we did. This is an applied improv group, so it's a little bit more playful. But think about this. we'll talk about how to number people so that you know who's going next, but this is called throw the ball. So you have a ball and you have an imaginary ball that you're describing. Describe the ball. What's it look like? What color is it? Is it soft? Is it hard? Has it got spikes on it? And then you will actually throw the ball toward your camera and tell who you're throwing it to. Say, I'm throwing it to Jane. And Jane will catch the ball virtually. And she has the ball. Now, she may think the ball is something different. So she'll describe the ball however she wants to describe the ball. And then she will throw it and say, okay, I'm going to throw the ball to John, and throw the ball through the camera. It's really a cool exercise, and it gets people engaged, and it gets people knowing each other's names. It gets people connecting with each other. It gets people laughing and having fun with this, okay? So throw the ball is a great way to start any of these virtual meetings. Okay, so the other thing you can do is, this is a Tiagi special. Tiagi has things called jolts. I'll give you Tiagi's website at the end. He has these things called jolts that are little short, playful exercises that actually make a learning point. So say you're talking about a change initiative and talking about how hard change is and how we're doing things a lot differently now. Instead of just talking about that or putting up some, bullet points on how change is hard, you can do a quick jolt. And you can do, this is one of Tiagi's jolts, days of the week. Everybody say the names of the days of the week out loud. Ready? Go. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Awesome. Now, say the names of the days of the week in alphabetical order. Go. All right, my guess hard. So how many of you have given up already? Raise your hand. Yes, several of you. So as it turns out, the brain is quite lazy and it doesn't like to burn a lot of glucose. So if your life's not in danger, it usually will opt out of those kinds of things where they have to think a lot. So you have these patterns of thinking, and it's these neural pathways that you have are like deep ruts in a road. Your wheels can't get out of those ruts. So when you're faced with something very different, like days of the week in, alphabetical order, it's quite difficult. Change is the same as pain in a way from a neuroscience standpoint. So here's the answer for those of you still struggling. Okay, Friday, Monday, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's alphabetical order. That is called a jolt. Those are just really cool little fun things to do that illustrate some learning point or something that you're trying to discuss. Other ways to begin, you can have people rename themselves. I'll show you how to do that on Zoom. If you look at your top right corner of your video, you click the three dots there and you'll see something that looks like this, and you can just rename yourself. Well, this is very helpful. So if you have a dozen people, you can give people numbers and say, okay, Brent, you're 1, John, you're 2, Sue, you're 3, Bill, you're 4, and that way you have an order of things as people are talking or participating. So it's an automatic order, because a lot of problems with these virtual meetings is everybody tries to talk at once. The other thing we've done on some of these virtual meetings is had people raise their hand, literally raise their hand, and when the facilitator sees their hand raised, he or she calls on them. The other thing we can do is, just to start, chat in a word that describes your day. Just chat those in. See how things are going with everybody. See if you see any common themes. Something good that happened today. Now you can do this chat box. You can do it where you unmute and people talk, depending on the size of the group. Also, say something that happened, something good personally that's going on, or maybe something good with the family. Another improv exercise that we've started with several times on meetings is called mirror. So one person will start being the mirror, and they will do movements or facial expressions, doesn't matter. And everybody on that call, on those videos, will mirror that movement or that expression. And then this person will pass that mirror to somebody else, and they will start movement or whatever. Again, it gets people connected, it gets people moving, it gets people really starting to look at each other, not as two-dimensional people on a screen, but as real people that are moving around. So it's quite good. So the things that you have on most platforms that a lot of people are not using, one of them is breakout rooms. So this is how that works with Zoom. So you can vary the number of rooms, the number of people in rooms. You can send the rooms messages. You can drop into rooms virtually, bring your video in. You can do countdowns if you're doing an exercise and say, okay, you guys have 5 minutes to discuss this. So if you got 20 people, you can do 4 rooms of 5 people or 5 rooms of 4 people. It depends on what the exercise is and what you're trying to do with it, right? So also most have polls. Polls are also quite good to get some interactivity and get people talking to each other. This is an interesting poll that you can do. It's called $10 or 10 cents. So you tell this virtual class that you're going to open this poll. They have to choose $10 or 10 cents. Now, one participant out of the people that chose the $10 is going to receive the $10. Okay, they'll just be selected at random. But the prize will only be awarded if at least 10 people participate, and you can vary that number. And then here's the thing, though. The prize will only be awarded if no more than 3 people choose the $10. So if more than 3 people choose the $10, nobody wins. So see how the poll comes out. Show people the poll. You don't have to really rub it in too much because there'll be a lot of people that choose the $10. And then ask this question. If you chose 10 cents, how do you feel about your decision right now? And then how do you feel about those that chose the $10? And then if you chose $10, how do you feel about your decision? And how do you feel about those who chose the 10 cents? So ask, does the game reflect events in the workplace? Can you describe those kind of events? So these are interactive things you can do with things like polls that really get some good discussion going, okay? And then there's also interactive whiteboards on all of these. So they're really cool and fun to mess with. So here's an example. Hold on. There's an example of a whiteboard right here. So you can either do real strategic stuff like operational excellence and the 3 legs, and you can brainstorm putting stuff under there, or you can just do something fun like collaboratively draw a face or the ideal leader or just anything you want. So one person will do a line and then the next person will add a line, and you can do that in that order where you've renamed everyone and collaboratively make a picture of something. So do something creative. Other collaborative tools, we've got things like Idea Flip, Miro, Mural. They're all pretty cool. I like all of them for different reasons. You can decide which ones are best for you. I've got a couple of things I did with Idea Flip. So here's some really cool things you can do with getting people to know, getting to know each other, even virtually. So you can draw these on Idea Flip. You can draw these lines, and then at one end, say, look at the bottom, years in the business or the company, and the other side, years in the business, their company, a seasoned veteran, and then people can pull their own stuff from the right there and put in their number of years and their name, and then they can place it on this spectrum. You can see the birth month, January through December, and then, you know, all kinds of cool things come out of that. Like you can say, wow, we've got the same birthday, or boy, more people were born in the summer, or, you know, whatever those are. But it's really fun to do. How distance from where you were born from the spot where you are, okay? So from this, like really close or really far away. And then you can have things like number of siblings, and that's kind of cool too. A lot of superintendents are firstborns, I found, by doing this exercise. So you can do a lot of cool stuff with this Idea Flip where it's interactive and fun, and people are contributing knowledge about themselves, and they're starting to connect with each other and finding out a lot of things for each other. All right, and throughout the meeting, if you're the facilitator, check in often. Always ask, yeah, how are we doing, guys? Are you getting tired? Do you need a break? Take breaks. So stand up a lot. If you haven't done the standing desk thing, I highly recommend it. Talk about that. Standing is the new smoking. It's really bad for you when you stand a lot. Sit a lot. Sitting is the new smoking. So you want to stand up as much as possible. And then I'm a certified yoga instructor, and you just Google desk yoga. You can do lots of cool yoga things. Like if you're sitting in your chair right now, just do a twist in your seat. Twist to the left. If I can just do this right now because it feels good, I'm doing it as well. I'm standing, but I'm doing it. Twist, then maybe put your hands over head, clasp, maybe interlace your fingers and put them over the top of your head and do another twist, or just from side to side, and maybe to the back and the front. You can do your neck, loosen up your neck. Put your chin to your chest and then start a rotation to the right, all the way around. Same thing, go to the left. Again, just Google desk yoga. There's thousands of sites, and you can do some really cool stretching exercises that keeps people energized and engaged. So doing experiential exercises, connecting exercises, and Mike's going to send you the Primal Safety Toolbox topics. That it's all about human connection. So look at those. There's a lot of good ideas in that list. And then you can also have people show their pet or their child at a break during a meeting. Or here's a cool exercise. Name a color. So just name any color, and then they have to go find an object in their work area or wherever they are in their home with that color, and then they have to tell a story about it. Maybe have something like the shortest story wins or something like that. So they have to make up a story about this thing that they've chosen, maybe red or blue or yellow, or whatever it is, and then tell a story. And there's a really famous short story attributed to Hemingway, but I don't know if he read it or not. And it says, "For sale, baby shoes never worn." Say it again. For sale, baby shoes never worn. Well, that's a 6-word story that conveys so much, right? So do your story. Tell a story. You can also tell personal stories if you've got a group that's pretty connected and pretty cohesive. It's a project team. Some of the stories I do, storytelling, it's the hero's journey, and everybody has their own hero's journey. So it's about saying, okay, everybody think about when they were a kid, something that they were struggling with as a kid and how you overcame it. Well, every one of those stories are hero stories. So you get to be the hero in your own story. And you can do this individually, like maybe one person tells a story each week as you're getting to know each other, or you could do several. But the idea is to connect people as human beings. And that doing something fun, doing something that they can all relate to, and telling stories. And then do some energizers and jolts, just like we've done a couple here. So keep doing those. Those are always fun, interactive, engaging, get the energy up. All right. Okay, I'm seeing some questions now. Okay, cool. Let me look at that. Guys, give me a minute so I can look at these questions. How to stay focused during the virtual calls. Okay, if you're, all right, I got that. How would you like to improve effectiveness from home? How to separate sanctuary of work from home? Would like to see insights on how COVID situation will change our way I work. I think this is going to change the way we work forever, actually. I really believe that. And we can either fight it and say, no, this isn't a virtual industry and we're going to go back to the way we were. I don't believe that's true. And I believe the people who learn how to do this well are going to really thrive. And the companies that don't, that resist this, they're going to fail. They're going to be less effective. Okay. Okay. I hope you guys, I'm going through these questions. I hope you're getting some ideas already. What games feel low stakes enough for people that are skeptical playing games? Well, one of the ones we do, actually throwing the ball, I've done that with engineers. They find that to be pretty fun, actually. And people are resistant at first. You got to embrace the resistance and be okay with it. Techniques on how to manage transitions of workforce to the virtual office. I mean, I hope you're getting some ideas on how to do that. But I think we're not going to go back to the way we did things before. I really believe that to be true. I don't think that's ever going to happen. So we're going to have to find ways to do this. And that's about, again, improvisation, gamification, experiential stuff, and storytelling, and being able to embrace that. So I'm going to go back. Let me do this, and then we'll go back and start taking some questions. So green monkeys. So say you're talking about personal development, self-control. I want you guys, everybody out there, don't think about green monkeys. Think about anything you want for the next 30 seconds, but don't think about green monkeys. Whatever you do, don't think about green monkeys. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go. All right, how'd you guys do with that? I give you less than 30 seconds, but there's a psychological tenet of this where the more we think about how to not do something, the more we do think about it. Okay, so this is called psychological rebounding. I mean, it's about how do we relate that to things like avoiding negative self-talk or stopping depressive thoughts, or that's just easy to do in this time. Maybe quitting smoking or dieting and losing weight. So we could talk about sharing strategies for increasing self-control when we talk about green monkeys. Okay. All right, I'm going to go back through some of the questions. I want to look at some of these. How to stay focused during virtual calls from Brenda. First of all, they have to be shorter calls. We can't do these 4 to 5 hour Zoom meetings and Skype meetings and GoToMeeting meetings. We just can't. We have to start breaking this up into shorter calls. An hour is probably ideal. 2 hours is the max. And then if you got to do more than that, I would say break it up. Okay. Would you like to improve effectiveness from home? All right. So here's some things I've done. First of all, separate it. Like, be done at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or whenever you're done. Turn that thing off and go do things that you're doing at home, so you can separate home and work. And then I would say build in some time throughout your day to be able to take some breaks from working from home, because it can, I have my own business, so it gets to me where I'm working way too much. I'll be working 14, 16-hour days because I'm never off. So you got to build in some time to be off. Okay. How to separate sanctuary from work zones in home. If you can get a room, get a room. A lot of times I go out in our little courtyard to do calls and webinars and things like that. If you've got good Wi-Fi, you can find some of those little places in your home, hopefully. But again, there has to be a separation there. And when you do go the virtual route, especially with virtual meetings, it's really about being more creative with how you do that. Guys, I really think we're not going to go back. I think this is the way we're going to work from now on. Now, you got construction projects that are brick and mortar and people have to do stuff. You have to be there for stuff. But I think a lot of the way we work is going to become virtual, as much as we can possibly do. And I think we're going to get a lot more focus on modularization and prefabrication, where we just are putting it all together on a project and not managing those processes anymore. Okay. I'm going through the questions now. Techniques I can use to manage the transition of my workforce to the virtual office. I would say, again, get them used to the technology first, because if they're unfamiliar and they don't know what works and they don't know how it works and they don't know the features that those technologies have, like virtual meeting spaces, they're going to be less comfortable with it. So it's about getting them to embrace the technology and do things and make mistakes. Like we made a mistake today. Our chat room doesn't work. So we're just going on the fly. And a lot of people are much more forgiving now of mistakes like that because of the way we're having to work. So that's why I'm going to the questions box to see if I can get some connection and interactions with you guys. I hope you're doing all this stuff virtually as I tell you. So let's make sure we keep that going. What games feel low risk? Let me low stakes game where people are skeptical of playing games. All right, let me tell you that most adults, if you can break down that barrier initially, they love to play games. They love to have fun with stuff. Now, and that goes even for engineers, and I'm a mechanical engineer, so I can say that. And you're going to get some people on the call that are saying, why are we doing these silly games? We got an agenda, we got to stick to it. And I'm telling you, that stuff gets really boring really quickly. So I think oh, that's Mallory. Hi, Mallory. Mallory asked that question. I think some low impact, kind of low risk games. I like throwing the ball. Mirror is a pretty low impact game. And telling something about yourself, I think is pretty low impact. If you could maybe get some people in some of those breakout rooms and ask them to find 2 or 3 things they have in common with a partner or 2 of the other people in that group. Those are really low risk games because people are willing to share stuff about themselves most of the time, especially if they know the people a little bit in those groups. All right, let's keep going. All right, with the additional interaction activities, but challenging to cut the meeting time in half, how do you manage that time? It's tough to manage that time anytime that you're doing meetings and anytime that you're especially doing virtual meetings. But as you can see, some of these jolts and some of these little short exercises, they don't take much time at all. Jolts are usually less than a minute. So it's about understanding who the people are in the call, in the virtual meeting, and then finding those activities that are, depending on what the time frame of the meeting is, that fit into that time frame. Like I can't do a 30-minute game or activity for you guys because I've only got an hour. So I chose some little short things like Green Monkey, like doing the poll about the $10 or 10 cents, or doing the days of the week, right, in alphabetical order. Those are some really short, easy games that keep people engaged, gets them to have some fun, bends their brain a little bit, right? Some virtual meetings seem to be forced, i.e. the new unnecessary meeting or email. So true. How to minimize meetings and make sure they're always effective. Boy, if you knew how to do that, you'd be a billionaire, because people are really struggling with that. And the meeting rules are the same as far as I'm concerned. Short, to the point, have some fun, solve some problems, make some decisions, in and out, right? You got to have a good, strong facilitator that keeps people from going down those rabbit trails, and then have somebody that keeps things moving, right? And I'd like the Parkinson's rule, cut it in half and see if you can do it. You may not be able to. Have the engagement, have the human connection, and get everything done. Then go back to your regular time. Just make sure it's done as well as you can do it. Please elaborate on the notion of modularization and the new way to conduct our processes in a virtual world. Well, the idea behind that is, and a lot of companies are starting to embrace that more, is you're spending less human-to-human interaction on a project site, and you can control things much better in these manufacturing sites that are doing the modularization, right? So what happens is you're spending less time managing processes, and you can do a lot more virtual management with things like modularization and prefabrication. You can manage more virtually because you don't have to have your eyes out there on the people that are putting in the work. So that's just a small piece to play more and more as we continue down this road, right? All right, as a comment, we planned on shutting down and did training for all employees on working remotely on our tools and accessibility. Wow, that's awesome. So you train people on how to do some of this stuff. That's great. Another one, additionally set a protocol with client for 4-hour drawing reviews with frequent breaks. They've gone well. So yeah, perfect. If you've got to go for long meetings like design reviews, build in breaks and say, okay, you've got 15 minutes, go pet your dog or kiss your kid or, you know, do your dishes or whatever and come back. But have people where they can stand up. You got to get people out of their seats. You got to get people moving. Tips for groups who rarely use video, just audio. Wow. Yeah, there's there's good audio jolts as well that you can do. I've got a bunch, which if you can just email me and we'll see. I've got some that you can do that are just audio alone. That's kind of fun. I would encourage people to use the video, but if that's impossible, you do the best you can, knowing that you can't see each other. All right, cool. All right, so that I've exhausted the questions so far, so let's continue. All right, hold on, I'm gonna go back. Close your eyes if you get sick. All right. All right. So let's do another jolt. Here's another one similar to the days of the week, except it's count to 10. Count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now count to 10 in alphabetical order. Go. See, this is another Tiagi deal. This is awesome. So again, this is a great debrief on, all you got to do is ask, how did that feel? Did you give up? Was it hard? Are there still people trying to figure this out? And I'll just give you the answer. There it is. So that's a jolt. And you can do that in the context of just about anything: communication, change management, innovation. There's all kind of applications of that jolt. That took less than a minute, probably less than 30 seconds, right? So those are things I'm talking about to keep people interested, engaged, thinking, and know that you're going to ask them some of these things. They're going to hang around, especially if it's kind of fun and challenges them in some way. Here's another great. This is probably a good low risk intro thing. So you've changed everybody's name. You've had them change their name to maybe a number, 1 through 15 or 20. Have them create a story using one word at a time. This is an improv game. So the person number 1 would start with once, second person would be upon, third would be fourth would be time, there was, and you can do a subject of the story. Just ask, the whole group, what's the subject of our story? Maybe it's a puppy. Once upon a time, there was a puppy who had, and people will keep going with this one word story. And then if you haven't finished the story, you can just keep going. Again, that takes probably less than 2 or 3 minutes. It's fun, it's engaging, it's creative. It gets people interacting, and people come up with really weird twists on the story. It's just a lot of fun, and it's very easy to do. And again, keeping people engaged, energized, and focused on what you're doing instead of checking emails or ordering pizza, whatever. All right, we got some more questions. Is there a jolt database? I am so glad you asked. Yes, there is. I'll send you toward Tiagi's website, and he's got tons of jolts, and I've got tons of jolts too. So if you have trouble finding them, just call me, email me. Okay, jolts, what's the practical application to the virtual session? Okay, something like one word story. If you're brainstorming, if you're doing something creative, if you're working on innovation, this is a way to get people sort of comfortable with failure. It gets them comfortable with putting themselves out there and being vulnerable. So every one of these exercises that I've done will help you with whatever topic you're doing for your virtual session, whether that's finding new ways to do things or planning something or reviewing something. It's about getting people to speak up, getting people to interact, getting people to be vulnerable, maybe giving an idea that they're not quite sure of, that may be a great idea. All of these things get people to start participating more and being more engaged. And that's what you want from these virtual sessions. And you can't just do that by telling people to be engaged and going through some type of process that you go through, reading a PowerPoint slide for an hour. It's not going to work. So you got to get these jolts, these exercises, these storytelling, these games. This is what keeps people engaged. This is what opens people up. This is what creates the vulnerability where you can find those great ideas. And you can do this in the real world as well, but I think it's even more important in this virtual world because people are not connected as much energetically or in a human way. They're looking at screens. So you have to be even more deliberate about this. Excellent, though. Excellent question. All right. All right. Sorry about that. So here's the key to being fun. You got to, first of all, if you're presenting, stand up. Don't sit, okay? Your energy has to be a lot higher than it normally is during a regular meeting. Instructions have to be hyper clear. If you've got video, demonstrate. If we didn't have several hundred people on this, we were all on video, I would be demonstrating more of these exercises, especially if it's a visual thing. And walk people through everything. Be hyper clear in what they're doing with exercises and, what we're doing, okay? And let's see if this will work. Yes. All right, so some resources. Tiagi.com, and you could even Google Tiagi and jolts, probably get a good list. He's got a lot of books. If you go on Amazon, he's got some great books on gamification, on what he calls game frames, which you can apply to anything. Go to the improvisation.network. Great people, very generous. If you want exercises, tell them what you're doing. They'll give you tons of exercises, especially their Facebook groups. There's one for business. There's one for education. There's all these splinter groups on Facebook of applied improv, and they're very helpful and very generous with ideas and exercises and games. Also, I found Liberating Structures to be quite good. They've got a book, they've got an app, really good app, and a website, of course. And they have tons of, and almost all of what they do is improv. It's applied improvisation. It's applying them to meetings and to brainstorming and to generating ideas and to keeping people engaged. But if you don't get anything out of any of those, just contact me. And I've got tons of stuff. Just let me know what you need, and I'll help if I can. All right, even more resources. So I'd love to link with you on LinkedIn. Go to my website. I've got a newsletter. Mike's going to send you the last copy of my newsletter, which has my audio book, my PDF of my latest book, a meditation CD, all kinds of resources, books, all kinds of things that are absolutely free. Then also I've got these online courses, online leadership library. It's all of those topics: innovation, communication, presentation, workforce development, stress management, time management. And I'm going to add this as a session once I flesh it out a little bit more. And then go to brentdarnell.com/online-courses for topics. And you can also get continuing education credits for those. Check them out. I can also do the virtual classes on just about any topic, including those topics, and virtual coaching, either group coaching or one-on-one coaching. And if you want to go to a deeper dive on innovation, creativity, problem solving, improv, stress management, any of those topics, just let CII know, and we'll set up another webinar on something that you want to talk about. All right, so here's a great closer. Again, it doesn't take long. This is probably less than 5 minutes, maybe 7 minutes tops. It's called the Story Spine. And there's some, nobody I think is really sure who came up with this, but this is a really cool brainstorming exercise. It's a cool closer. where you talk about what happened through the meeting or during the day. It's so powerful. So you start with, you get in a circle, or you get virtually, you've got 1 through 15 or 20. Well, number one starts with, once upon a time, there was an industry called construction who practiced a non-virtual reality. And every day they went to projects and they went to their offices and they did things the same every single day. They wrote emails and they answered phone calls and they visited projects and they did things in a real, tangible, three-dimensional kind of way. But one day, notice something changes there. But one day there was this pandemic called COVID-19, and they no longer could work the way they used to work. And because of that, they had to create more ways to work virtually. All right, so notice that because of that, you should repeat that like a lot, maybe 15, 20, 30 times. And because of that, they had to work more virtually. And because of that, they looked at how they built buildings and projects with a clean slate. And because of that, they created this construction 2.0 where everything was totally different and not like it was before the pandemic. And because of that, everybody really realized how interconnected we are as human beings and as an industry. And because of that, everybody tried to help each other. And because of that, our suicide rate was no longer number 2 of any industry. We got better mental health from each other because we were connecting with each other more because of this pandemic. And because of that, we totally changed who we were as an industry. And because of that, millions of young women and men flocked to the industry because they wanted to be a part of this industry, because it was very human and because people valued human connections and relationships. And because of that, we had no workforce development issue. And because of that, we totally transformed how we build projects and the way we work, until finally we had an industry that we were proud of and that we love to come to work each day. And we love how the changes from the pandemic has made our industry better. And ever since then, we value each other as human beings. We really know that we're connected in a more profound way than we ever thought possible before the pandemic. And the moral of the story is, sometimes it takes a pandemic to change how you're working and what you're doing and change humanity for the better. Boom, that's a story spine. And you'll find that people are a little reluctant at first, but once they get into it, this really is a powerful thing. And you can do this anytime with anything. You can do it as a brainstorming session. You can do it to generate new ideas, okay? Okay, Mallory, thank you. This was created by a guy named Ken Adams, the story spine. Awesome. He's from San Francisco, the Bay Area. All right, so we just have a few minutes left. Are there any final questions or comments? So somebody out there said they had this training and was doing things to help people to embrace this virtual way of working and better meetings and all that. Does anybody else? Okay. All right. Thank you, Larry. Larry gave me a little private note there. All right. Any other comments or questions? So let me just recap. This is different. I know you all are realizing that. This is like nothing we've ever done before. And we have to find better ways to engage human beings and better ways to connect with each other in this virtual world. And part of that is going to be applied improvisation and getting people to have more fun. Part of this is going to be gamification and experiential stuff. And part of it's going to be storytelling. Everybody has a story. Everybody wants to tell their story. We have to give them platforms to be able to do that. And so we can use this time to create better connections with each other. Even though it's virtual, I think you can really use this time if you do the right exercises, if you create the right atmosphere. These meetings don't have to be boring and they don't have to be a drudge. They can be fun, and you can find out and learn more about each other if you give a platform to be able to do that. So it's something that we gotta have to embrace, because it's gonna be like this for a while, and I think a lot of this is gonna hang around until after we go back to our fairly normal work routine. So I would encourage you to find some ways to do this, and if you just want to have a discussion with me on this, let me know. I've got tons of ideas. I only had an hour, so I tried to make it, you know, as impactful as possible in an hour. Somebody asked, do I always you use Prezi? I love Prezi. I don't use anything else unless I have to. Some of the keynotes that I do at these big conferences, they have to have it on PowerPoint. That's okay. PowerPoint's not horrible. I just like Prezi better. I like the movement. I like it's a different look. I like that it's there's you can zoom stuff, right? All right. So I'm getting some thank yous, and it's been my pleasure to be here. Great presentation. Thank you for the great tips. Nice. All right. So thank you all for those kind words. I'm going to close this for now. But know that I'm here to help in this virtual thing. I've got lots of good resources, including the online courses, but just also stuff that I can just give you. Mike's going to post or give you guys this newsletter that I have with tons of free books, free stuff, all of my books, audio books, PDFs of my books, lots of information, lots of things you can do to work on yourself and work on your stress. Let's all take care of each other. Let's all know that we're all in this together. That's why I'm sharing this for you know, just because I care about you guys and I see you struggling, and I want you to know I'm here to help. So anything that I didn't cover here that you have a question on or specific on, or you need an exercise, please just call or email me. I'll be happy to help. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mike.
All right, Brent, thanks a lot. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today. That was really great, really informative. There are a number of questions about, can we get these slides and so forth, and the answer to that is yes. We'll post the slides and the link to the recording at construction-institute.org/blog, okay? It'll be up there later this afternoon, so you can check there. And the link to Brent's free materials is on the slide under his picture where it says free materials. That link will be active. You'll be able to go pick that stuff up. So thanks again, Brent. Appreciate it.
Mike, one question. Could you get them the link to the newsletter, the MailChimp newsletter I sent out? Because that has a lot more resources than even what's on my website.
Yes, I'll do that.
Perfect.
All
Guys,
right.
Stay safe. Stay safe. Let me know how I can help, and I hope to be in touch with you soon. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.